Welcome to this webinar, and I'm the chair of the Green Talent Award program, which runs globally, and we have a series of these, and we'll be homing in on the sustainability of the supply chain. So let's progress, and then we can go to our main speaker that comes all the way from Bangladesh, and he'll be able to introduce himself and has an expertise on sustainability in the supply chain. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion. Looking at how the supply chain links to sustainability, and we have brought in an expert from a university in Bangladesh who has ties with China, the Philippines, and Malaysia. And so our honored guest today is Dr. MD 𝗛𝗺𝗶𝗆, who has extreme amounts of expertise through visiting as a visiting scientist in Texas, is an editor-chief of the USCM UK and the ISCTI USA institutions. So I'm now going to hand you over for the presentation, and any questions we can take them at the end.
Thank you so much. First of all, let me give a special thanks to the organizing committee, Edupro, and then University of Leeds to invite me for this kind of a prestigious Edupro Global Green Talent Awards event. And so now today we are going to discuss something on the industry-driven sustainable supply chain management, which is very current issue and which is also part of our Edupro. So basically, I'd like to give also special thanks to the Professor 𝗛𝗺𝗁𝗿, the strategic partner of this webinar today, University of Leeds. If you know very carefully that the current contemporary issues in supply chain management, so then you can see that nowadays the supply chain management is a very contemporary issue. First of all, the sustainable supply chain. When you talk about the sustainable supply chain, that time ESG is one of the key issue, environmental, social, and governance. There is another key point is a green supply chain or environment-friendly supply chain. Another key issue in the supply chain, the recycling supply chain. So that is 3 R's. So reduce, reuse, recycle. Reverse supply chain or reverse logistic, and definitely the global supply chain challenge. When you talk about the global supply chain challenge, that is the first thing is the supply chain disruption, COVID-19, and due to the COVID-19, we notice the supply chain disruption. Again, we notice the supply chain disruption in the Russia-Ukraine war. So today I'll talk about the supply chain disruption later on, and then another key issue in the supply chain, the agile, responsive supply chain. And finally, the digital transformation in supply chain management. So what you said, that technology-driven supply chain. So now when you talk about the sustainability, when you talk about the transparency, agility of supply chain, that times that technology-driven supply chain like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, machine learning, blockchain, Internet of Things, big data, and so on, how we can apply this our existing supply chain. So basically, we are not covering all today, but some of the key issues we'll discuss today. And I always invite the audiences to ask the queries after my presentation. So I'd like to request all audiences, participants, you have to be ready to ask the question. And if possible, also, I'd like to request that turn on your camera. So during the online session or webinar, if you notice that all cameras are off, sometimes you're confused whether I'm audible, I'm visible to anyone, or maybe that I'm your face. So I like to request, if possible, turn on your camera. So it is also one kind of motivation for everyone. So let us start our main discussion for today. What I said earlier, that our one of the target today, the sustainable supply chain. When you talk about the sustainable supply chain, that time that ESG will come up. If you look very carefully, ESG, you can see this one, environmental issues, societal issues, and governance issues. We are not discussing details, but I'd like to request those are participants today, you have to also rethink. Maybe you can do some more research work on this kind of three parameters impact upon the sustainable supply chain. When you talk about the environmental issues, then we have to think about the climate change strategy, carbon emissions. It is one of the target of the zero carbon emissions. Zero carbon emissions is possible if you could manage that other supply chain in the whole, all stakeholders involvement. Then the waste management, reduce the wastes, renewable energy, it is a part of the environmental issue. On the other hand, the societal issue, when you talk about this one, that is the one issue is that human rights, health issue and safety issue, child labor issue, and we have to think the employee engagement. So when you talk about the employee engagement and the social impact, that means the total quality management, we have to think how can apply. And the governance issue, when you talk about the governance, first of all, we have to think about the ethical issues. So business ethics. We have to highlight this kind of business ethics practices, definitely the compliances, and then we have to think about this one, how we can manage this kind of compliance and ethical driven governance in the current practices in the organization. You notice that today I mentioned industry driven. So when you talk about the industry driven, this is one of the vital issues, that how could manage this kind of ethical driven practices, business ethics in our existing enterprises. So this is the first one, what we said earlier, that ESG, environmental, social, and governance impact upon the supply chain. Now, if you ask me how about the global challenge in the logistic industry, there are a few global challenges we are noticing in our logistic and supply chain. One is the transportation issue and transportation roadblocks, shortage of driver, port sector. Sector is a very important issue. But supply chain invisibility. So now we have to think how can we improve the supply chain visibility. That is one of the issues that we can think transparent supply chain or supply chain agility, whether all stakeholders they have to be aware about the existing supply chain. And there is a few more new technology adoption is also some difficulties for the technological advancement for the logistic industry, a lack of the skilled and human resource and specialized personnel. If you look very carefully, there's a few challenges, what we said here. But among this all, basically the three key challenges we have to think in the logistic industry, in supply chain industry. One is that poor infrastructure. I like to remind you, I like to request you, if you see this one, the poor infrastructure, then you can see insufficient integration of the transport network, ICT, warehouse, distribution facilities. This is one of the key issues. Second is that the trade regulation, and you know that now it is a global platform. We are doing the global business, import and export, the global supply chain management. So that means we have to think the international trade regulations. But problem is that the different countries have different regulations. So local and national logistics strategy, or regional, or maybe the international strategy, we have to merge it. And this is another issue, that how can we manage this kind of trade regulations, country to country, regional to regional. And finally, trained manpower. If you look very carefully, trained manpower, then you can see this on both party logistics sector and manufacturing, retailing sectors are very weak nowadays. So we need a skilled human resource, particularly those can work in the industry. Sometimes we don't have the supply chain courses in our traditional undergraduate and master's level. So we have to need the specialized supply chain management courses, so that we need the trainer. And unfortunately, we don't have that enough trainer, skilled human resources lacking. Even the faculty members, their PhD is not the supply chain manager. Only few faculty members, supply chain management PhD holder. So maybe we can work on that. How can we create that skilled human resource in the logistic industry? If you come to the supply chain, as we talk about the supply chain, I believe that now today I noticed that number of participants more than 200 here. So amongst all participants, you have more or less some understanding about supply chain. Even if you don't have any understanding, I like to do some scratch about the supply chain. I like to start in this way. Any supply chain, we have to think that three entities. First of all, the raw materials and finished product. Raw materials will come from the supplier end. After the processing, finished product delivered to the customer end. So this is the basic entities. And another one, the flow of goods, flow of information, flow of fund from supplier to customer. So these the three basic entities for any supply chain, whatever the manufacturing industry or service industry. In the service industry, you have to say flow of service instead of the flow of goods. So look very carefully. One of the initiatives I'd like to apply the supply chain in any industry, whatever the manufacturing service industry, we have to make sure that raw materials come from the supplier end, after the processing, finished product delivered to the customer end. And then you have to think about the flow of goods, flow of information, flow of fund from supplier to customer. So we have to maintain these three basic entities, any supply chain when you like to design. Today, I'll share with you some example that how we can designing any supply chain model for any industry, any company. So that time we have to use these kind of three basic entities. This is the basic supply chain for the manufacturing industry. I don't want to spend more time here. If you look very carefully, you can see this one. Raw material come from the supplier end. After the processing, finished product delivered to the customer end. And then what we said here, flow of goods, flow of information, flow of fund was supplied to customer. I did not say anything about the manufacturer, distributor, retailer. You know that the manufacturer is basically factory, distributor means that they are in responsible for the distributions, and retail is outlet. Manufacturer, distributor, retailer, whether it will be available or not, it depends on the production capacity. It depends on the size of the business. So when you talk about the supply to customer, that time that manufacturer, distributor, retailer will be available or not, we have to check the production capacity. If it is like the Tesco, if you think that like the Walmart, at that time that we have to think the whole supply chain. And not only that, maybe the few factories in different country. Tesco is available in Malaysia, Tesco is available in Singapore. So the different factory in the Singapore and Malaysia, they are dominating. Tesco basically, it comes from the UK. So UK's the factories are different. So maybe the few factories would be there, and maybe the 10 to 20 distribution center would be there, and maybe the hundreds retailers outlet would be there. So what I said that distributor, manufacturer, retailer will be available or not, it depends on the size of the business production capacity. Now, we like to apply this basic supply chain for the service industry. But I like to give you the few more examples for later on, so then you can get the idea of the manufacturing service industry. If you see this one, service industry, you can say raw materials come from the supplier end, after the processing, finished product delivered with the customer end. There is no question at all. And then service provider means if it is like hospital supply chain, then hospital. If it is like education institutions, then the university service provider. Then flow of service, flow of information, and flow of fund from supply to customer. If you look very carefully, there is another one thing. I believe that you can already notice this one, consumer. Basically, consumer is that end customer, end user, final customer, final user. Consumer is that ultimate customer. In the manufacturing industry, we did not say directly that consumer, but in service industry, we have to focus on consumer. Consumer in the service industry is that the society. Whatever we do in the service industry, our ultimate target, how we can contribute to the society. Manufacturing industry, our target is improving the operations, business operations, enhancing that quality, outsourcing, improving the globalization, and so on. But service industry, our ultimate target, how we can add the value to society contribution, and that society is the consumer. So look very carefully when you talk about the service industry supply chain management. At that time, we can see this one that the supplier, manufacturer, instead of the manufacturer, the service provider, then customer, and finally the consumer contribute to the society. By the way, I'd like to remind you again once a time that service industry supply chain management is a unique one. Because if you look very carefully, if I say hospital supply chain management, in the hospital, who are the raw materials? The patient. And who are the finished product? Patient themselves, but it's a different format. We call it recovered patient or healthy patient. So the same person, format is different. That is one of the specialty of the service industry supply chain management. What I said earlier, if you ask the owner of the service industry that what is the ultimate target, they always mention one thing, that they like to contribute, they like to add the value to the society by producing the finished product, quality products, and betterment of the society. So you have to keep in mind, when you work in the service industry supply chain management, we have to focus on that contribution to the society. On the other, manufacturing industry, they're also contributing to the society, but their main target, improving the operations, better increasing the profit, quality outcomes, and so on. Now, this is some of the examples. I believe that already you got some idea about the manufacturing industry and service industry. You can see the different area, the manufacturing industry, vegetable supply chain, poultry supply chain, fishing industry supply chain, RMG supply chain, textile, and so on. And service industry, you can see education supply chain, hospital supply chain, tourism supply chain, and so on. So what I mentioned earlier, that we can apply the supply chain management in the manufacturing industry as well as in the service industry. It is one of the key points you have to keep in mind. That means that from now to onward, if you are in the practitioners, you have to start to think how we can apply the supply chain concept in your company, in your industry. Because we are giving some of the examples at this stage, you can get the better idea. This is a very important discussion, historical evolution of supply chain management, evolution time of supply chain management, historical perspective of supply chain management. If you look very carefully, then you can see that officially supply chain management started their journey in 1950s by the name of the logistic management. So we can assume that logistic management is the previous term of supply chain management or the previous form of supply chain management. And then by the way that officially logistic management, they started their journey in the defense, military people, they started this journey of the logistic management in the 1950s. And the 1970s matured the logistic concept. And then after the 1970s to 1980s, there's a conversion of the logistic into the supply chain management. And officially supply chain management, they started their journey in 1980s. This is the starting point, official format of supply chain management. And then after the 1980s, most of the research in supply chain management in the manufacturing industry, particularly the materials flow of goods, and then inventory and how can you transfer the product, transportation, and so on. So all relevant research on manufacturing industry, particularly for the materials flow of goods. And then officially supply chain management, they started their journey in the service industry in 1985. This is the first initiative, service industry supply chain management by Professor Dr. 𝗛𝗺𝗏. He developed the National Health Service supply chain management in 1985. And then, about 85% research, supply chain management in the manufacturing industry. On the other hand, about 15% research supply chain management in the service industry. So now you can understand that a lot of scope is there. We can add more values in service and supply chain management. What I said just now, that only 15% is a 15% research supply chain management in the service industry. If you go to the Google, if you search the supply chain management book, you can see the most of the books are written for the manufacturing industry. Very only few books are written for the service industry. So maybe this is one of the milestones you can think when you go to the supply chain management application. And ultimate target is what is the industry-driven, industry practices. Maybe we have to think of this as service and supply chain management. By the way, there is another milestone I'd like to talk about this one. Educational supply chain is in 2007, Professor 𝗏𝗏, he developed the educational supply chain management model. This is one of the key points of the service and supply chain management. But that model was based on the City University of Hong Kong, one of the case study. So as you know, the case study could not be generalized concept. By the way, before the Professor 𝗏𝗏 in 2007, O'Brien and Kennedy in 1986, the professor used the first term, educational supply chain. There was no model, but they used a survey only. So if you look very carefully, education supply chain, one of the key points of the service and supply chain management. O'Brien and Kennedy, then Professor 𝗏𝗏. 𝗏𝗏, he developed the model, but there is no, that was a case study. It's one of the weakness of the research. And finally, that 2007, you can see this one, ITESCM model was developed. In 2007, ITESCM model was developed. Integrated tertiary educational supply chain management model. This is the supply chain management model for the tertiary education institutions for the university. There is a first empirical study on education supply chain management. It is another milestone in the service industry supply chain management, particularly the education institutions. And you know that this model was developed in 2009, and after developing this model was in general. So any university, any country, they can apply this model, ITESCM model. And interesting thing is that this model, after the establishment in 2009, there are a few research on that, and different countries, they use this model, ITESCM model, for the university supply chain management performance measurement. And not only that, there are a few PhD also done based on this ITESCM model. So this is the historical evolution of supply chain management. If you look very carefully, nowadays, if you ask any organization, do you have the supply chain department? Sometimes they say they don't have. They have the logistic department. They have the inventory department. They have a procurement department. But we have to understand the one thing is that supply chain management, when you say the supply chain management department, it will include that everything. It will include the logistics, procurement, inventory, transportation, retailing, everything. So we have to start the use the term supply chain management instead of the logistic management. Logistic management has been incorporated with the supply chain management. So this is a very key point, the supply chain management. By the way, you can see this one that officially started the journey in 1980s, and now 2026. So you can see only about the 46 years. 46 years is very not very long span for the research. It is very short span, we can say, because if you think that human resource management or marketing managers for a long time, the 200 years they're using this concept. On the other, supply chain management is a new concept. So now I'd like to share with you, when you talk about the supply chain management, there are some few facilities and function activities should be available. I do not want to spend more time on that one. Just I like to remind you that when you talk about the supply chain management, definitely there will be some few facilities should be there. Definitely some functions, activities must be there. I just at a glance, I like to just mention the name so that you can see. When it says supply chain manager, you have to make sure that warehouse should be there, factory should be there, processing center, factory is a part of the manufacturing, distribution center is a part of the distributor, retail outlet is a part of the retailer, office is backup office. So everywhere, like the manufacturer, distributor, retailer, everywhere you have to think the backup office. This office basically controls, suppose, procure the raw materials. So how they'll procure this is the backup office, they will do this kind of thing. So this is the very fundamental facilities to design any supply chain for the industry. This is some of the function activities. I already mentioned that when you talk about the supply chain management, if you ask a very simple question, what is supply chain? This is one chain that will start from supply end, finish to the customer end. And how will you manage this chain? That is supply chain management. I can repeat, supply chain is the one chain that will start from supply end, finish to the customer end. Then how will you manage this chain? That is supply chain management. And when you talk about the supply chain management, we have to think about this kind of function activities. You see some of the function activities are here, like forecasting, like the purchasing, like inventory management, like information management, flow of information, all information will be there, integrated information system, MI system, quality assurance, scheduling, on-time delivery, on-time service, on-time schedule, customer service. So keep in mind, we like to remind you one thing is that we have to ensure that some basic function and activities when you design the supply chain management. Now, if you look very carefully, I believe that already we have to spend more time on that definition of supply chain management. Now, we like some application, some of the application. You see, this is one application. Say, fresh vegetable export by year to European Union in UK from Bangladesh. So look very carefully. Fresh vegetable export by year to the European Union and UK. And you see, it will start from Bangladesh. So look, very simple one is the farmers. So you have to take that fresh vegetable from them, from farmers. And then there will be the regional association collection point, central packaging house will be there. And then a airport cargo village will be there. So you have to move in that way. Then it will go to the loading area, and after the airplane, and finally it will go to the UK or the European Union. Fresh vegetable from Bangladesh. What I said earlier, global supply chain management. We have to think that this is not only this localized, it's international. So we have to work on that how we can manage this kind of global supply chain management. This is another example. You can see this one. This is that earlier is the by year, and now this is the export by the sea. Say the same fresh vegetable, or maybe you can see the potato, or maybe the onion you like to send, or maybe you can say that the fish you like to export. From the Bangladesh to by sea to the other country, European country. The same things, farmers from there we have to collect, and then there will the traders, the middlemen we called it, and then exporters, packaging house will be there. There's some activities will be there. I don't want to talk too much about this one. Then it will go to ICD, Inland Container Depot, and from the arrival the goods will be there. And then we have to come to this area. You can see some staffing area, how there is some also the security issues we have to maintain. Seaport will be, and then finally products will go to seaport. And there's a few more steps in the seaport. And finally to go to the ship and for the final destination, like the UK, like the USA or something like that. So if you look very carefully, what I said earlier, global supply chain management. This is a very practical example. I'd like to show you that very practical two examples. We can apply the supply chain management. I earlier mentioned the manufacturing industry. So now I'd like to show you some model. This is a supply chain management model in the manufacturing industry. Basically, it is for the particular textile industry, how they're using the supply chain management. And then you can see this one, supply chain in the fishing industry. So you can apply the supply chain in the fishing industry. And this is some of the examples, and particularly based on the Bangladesh. The supply chain management in the textile industry, it is a global scenario that you can see this one, supply chain management in the textile industry. This is the integrated supply chain performance measurement for the manufacturing industry. Basically, you can see that those models you can see here, most of the models are developed, produced by my PhD scholars, my PhD student. So there is some things you can see. This is the manufacturing industry supply chain management, supply chain performance measurement. Now, supply chain management in the service industry. The first one, the tourism supply chain. You can see this in the tourism supply chain. And same process, like supplier, there with the supplier, then information flow, customers with the ultimate target. And then this is how we can do this kind of tourism supply chain management, particularly Indonesia, particularly the Malaysia. They're very popular one, the tourism supply chain management. I'm involved with the university, Tun Abdul Razak, in Razak, Malaysia. I'm supervisor PhD student there. So there, we have a few projects on that, tourism supply chain management. And now you can see the academic library. Basically, academic library supply chain management is part of the education institutions. And you see, so you can apply the service industry academic library. This is the one model for the integrated academic library supply chain, IALSC model. Particularly, one of my PhD scholars here developed this model with my supervision. And then ITESC model, I think you remember that earlier we mentioned integrated tertiary educational supply chain management model. It is very interesting thing is that we can apply the supply chain. It is very interesting. It is very interesting thing is that my slide is visible now. Yeah. So it is very interesting thing is that integrated tertiary education supply chain management model, and there you can see that university education supply chain. There are the two inputs like friends and internal external projects. And then after the processing, you get the two products, a finished product. One is from the graduates, and its outcomes. By the way, it is not our job that university will produce that only for graduates. Our job, we have to produce a quality graduates and quality research outcomes that will contribute to the society. So this is at a glance, you can see education supply chain management. And this is the next one is that ITESC model. I don't know to talk about this one, but if you're interested more, particularly the participants, you can just write down ITESCM model, and then you can search in the Google a lot of papers on that. You can get it. At a glance, I'd like to say the main point. In this model, there are three parts. One is that left side is the education supply chain, right side is the research supply chain, and the middle one, the educational management. So you know that what I said earlier, education supply chain is a supply chain education management. Our ultimate target, we like to produce the quality graduates, quality outcomes, so that we can contribute to the society. So basically, it's the ITESC model. Sorry, I don't want to talk too much about this one today, but if you are interested, you can check, you can review from the Google a lot of papers. Maybe you can also communicate with me later on about this one. So at a glance, you can see we can apply the supply chain management in the different industry. This is my, you notice that my lecture was like that. At first, I like to say the special issue, different issues on the supply chain management. Then we mentioned about the supply chain management definition. Then we mentioned about the application supply chain management. Now we like to see the one thing, that is a COVID time, the supply chain disruption. You know, I like to say not only COVID time, during the pandemic time, not only that, in addition to the Russia-Ukraine war, even recent Middle East, our Middle East world, due to this kind of things, we are facing this kind of supply chain disruption. So basically, supply chain disruption is a common pattern, but now the question is how we'll manage this kind of supply chain disruption. That is our discussion for today, because today you you noticed earlier, one of the target is that sustainable supply chain management. How can produce that sustainability in the supply chain management, environment-friendly supply chain management, and definitely the industry-driven. So let us start by this way. COVID-19 time, you can see that we understood one thing, the fragility of our modern supply chain. We assume that we have designed our supply chain, this very modern supply chain, but unfortunately, during the pandemic time, we understood, no, there's something wrong. Our supply chain, the existing supply chain is fragile. And we noticed that when the lockdown was going on one country to another country, starting from the China to other country, we understood there is a possibility of the whole supply chain has been collapsed. And it happens at that time. And you recall that time we used this one. At first, we thought that COVID-19 will be there maybe the 3 months, the 6 months, and 1 year. And then finally, it was around 2 years. So that time we noticed that two things. One is that diversify suppliers, diversify sourcing, and digitalization. Instead of the traditional flow of information should be changed by the digitalization. So this is the two things we have learned during the pandemic time. And what I just mentioned, that supply chain disruption, I just give the two examples of supply chain disruption and what is our next step to ensure the resilient supply chain or the sustainable supply chain. Do you recall that the China's lockdown in the 2020 January? And the Apple, one of the main supplier, like Western Corporation, it was the lockdown. It was the situation in China, so it was a lockdown there. And if the Apple, they noticed something, the disruption in the whole business. Now, the Apple, they are now thinking that we should keep the other hub in a different country, like India, Vietnam, Mexico, even the different continents. So you can understand the changing the business concept due to the supply chain disruption. And then another example, the Samsung, the mother country, the South Korea. So they also face the same issue that South Korea was the lockdown. They couldn't produce that Samsung device. And then now they're thinking that why not we move to the production to the Vietnam and India as well, even while maintaining the components from the China. So if you look very carefully, it means that they're changing the business pattern. And they're now moving to that one, like the South Korea, Samsung. They're planning to move to the different country. It is one of the learning in supply chain disruption, during the supply chain disruption. And now you can ask me, then, Professor, what is our next step? Or what is the reshaping the future? First of all, we should go to the decentralization. So we should think of the visualization of the decentralization of the manufacturing capacity. And nowadays our pattern has been changed. Maybe you can think that how can we bring the production at home, a home delivery service. So in that case, automation, online delivery, small batch production will be one of the key issues. Ultimate target is what you said earlier, the transition to a new model for supply chain will be underpinned by a rapid and wholesale digitalization of the paperwork that accompanies the global trade. So our paperwork should be converted to the digitalization concept. And now, what I said here, so in that case, what is our next job? Our first job will be the digitalization of the buyer-supplier relationship. So maybe our existing buyer-supplier relationship, which is the very traditional method, maybe we have to change this kind of thing, digitalization. Our ultimate is the robust supply chain. And in order to buyer-supplier relationship, what we have to do? In that case, we have to do something like we can apply the artificial intelligence, advanced technology, machine learning, maybe the Industrial 5.0. We can think of the IoT application, blockchain application. Today, I'll discuss some of the technology driven in this sense. So our target, the technology will be there so that quickly you can move to the next supplier. So when you like to talk about this kind of things, then our ultimate target will be like that how we can manage these kind of things. Remember, one thing is that our target is smart, agile, industry-driven, resilient supply chain. And definitely the ecosystem is the most important thing here. So I would say at a glance, our target, like what I said earlier, that industry-driven, resilient supply chain, and maintaining the ecosystems is the key to building a global trade and investment network that is capable of weathering the future storms. Look very carefully, ecosystem we have to maintain, so we cannot ignore the environment, but our target, any kind of future storms we can handle. So any kind of supply chain disruption we can handle. So we like to apply the technology and to create the sustainable supply chain management, definitely adding the value to the industry. Now, you see, but now you can ask me the next question, that how we can apply this technology in the whole supply chain. So if you look very carefully, then you can see this one. It is possible. It is possible if you think in that way, how we can improve the supply chain communication. Supply chain communication from the supplier to customer. Improve the supply chain communication. And second one, one of the target is that how we can greater efficiency in supply chain process. So supply chain process, how can you provide the greater efficiency? So you're talking about the process connected to the input and output. And definitely the supply chain visibility. So I think I mentioned earlier how we can add the transparency in supply chain visibility. So if we apply the technology in our whole supply chain, then we can create this kind of three outcome. So I'll take another few more minutes, and then we are going to finish, and we'll invite you for the Q&A. So it's the few examples like cloud computing and artificial intelligence. We should think supply chain can generate that big data. China is one of the key point in the China that is a big data-driven, data-centric decision making. They're taking the decision based on the data, big data they are following. They have the language there's some of the language issue due to the Mandarin issues and the English issue, but they're overcoming this issue by the big data. So maybe we can think of the big data, cloud-based artificial intelligence turns that data into insights. You remember earlier you mentioned that due to the supply chain disruption, we noticed that we have to go to the short-term decision. Even you have to observe that how we'll use this kind of big data for the short-term decision. We need the decision, but decision will come based on the data. And then what is it that cloud computing coupled with the artificial intelligence has transformed how supply chain operates. So now we can change their operation. Our target the next 10 years, how can you work on the supply chain? And some of the issues that how can use it, predictive analytics. So cloud computing and AI can use of previous trains, data, market indicators. And the ultimate target that inform the supply selection. What I said earlier, that suppose earlier you depend on only one supplier. Now we have to think that, okay, you have to keep the few suppliers in your target point, like the first tier supplier, maybe international, the second tier supplier, maybe local, third tier supplier, maybe another local. So our target the international suppliers, if we couldn't get it, but then go to the second or third one. So it is not very easy to choose. That's why we said that we need the artificial intelligence, cloud computing, then informing the supplier selection. So you have to check the criteria, how can you choose this one. Definitely the real-time information shipment. And you know that the 50 years before, we could not think that how we can track the ship. Now it is very possible. Real-time information is possible due to the cloud computing. So maybe we have to think about this one, how we can apply this kind of cloud computing artificial intelligence for this one. And not only that, career performance is improving due to the artificial intelligence and the cloud computing. So definitely we can add this kind of predictive analytics to improve our existing supply chain, and definitely do the sustainable supply chain management, industry-driven with industry focusing issue. And then now if you look very carefully, the robotic process automation. Ultimate target is a robotic process automation, that how we can enhance the uses of the robots. Our target is that reduce rework risk rates, improve the employee safety. Employee safety is one of the key issues to improve the organization. Do you recall that earlier I mentioned ESG metrics? And one is the ESG, G stands for the governance. And that time I mentioned this one, that good governance. It is one of the good governance. If you can take care of your employees' safety measurement, you can measure the safety for the employees. And then that we can do from the routine work, so humans can work more strategic effort. We are not ignoring the human. Human must be there, but we have to how can use the human for the strategic decision, and this kind of operating level decision, operating level work activities could be done by the robot. So maybe we can think about the new pricing structures will enable the companies to invest the automation. So investment is very important for automation. Initial investment only one time, but you will get the benefit for a long time. So maybe we have to start to think how we can go to the automation, or we have to think of the investment as well. And then Internet of Things, IoT. Basically in IoT, you can see this one. I like to start with one easy example. Say 30 years before, you can send the product from the one place to another place by the truck. But now you like to know the position of the truck, tracking the truck. So in that case, what you have to do that call the driver. So sometimes you are getting the misinformation, or the information will be distorted. So in that case, now we can apply the GPS system, vehicle tracking system. This GPS vehicle tracking system is the part of the Internet of Things. So that could add the values there. So IoT devices have improved quality management in supply chain through GPS tracking of shipments and monitoring the parcel condition. And it is very important. Nowadays you can track the product, what is the product is now. So another one thing is that we can apply the asset tracking through IoT. So we can use the RFID chips, smart device, mobile sensors, so on. So it will add our value to all stakeholders among the supply chain. So that is the ultimate target, how can add the values there. And that's all from my side. And now I like to invite the audience's participants to ask a question.
Thanks, Dr. Mamoon and 𝗛𝗵𝗆. Thank you very much for hosting and for speaking in this webinar. Yeah, we have just received a question in terms of sustainability and circular supply chain. How can the supply chain be designed to improve sustainability and performance?
Yeah. Good question. Very good question. You're talking circular
Yes,
economy.
please.
The best example of the circular economy is the plastic. So now you can think in this way that our target is that traditional supply chain is that it will go to supply to customer, but circular economy that after the factory production it will go for the recycling. After the distribution, again go to the recycling. After the retailing, again go to the recycling. So circular economy. It will add the value to supply chain preference. If you go to the Singapore, you can see that everywhere they try to use applying the reduce, reuse, recycle, 3R. But you know that why they like to use this one, because it's adding the value directly to the industry. It is adding the value to the whole supply chain performance, improve the supply chain performance. But the problem is that if you ask that what kind of issue you can face for this kind of implementation, first of all, we need that kind of mechanism, whether you can go to the circular economy or not. And that if you ask that suppose that wastage material, even you can use from the wastage material, you can go for the recycling process, but you have to need the manage, how will you manage this kind of this wastage material. So there's a few things. One is that wastage materials management, and then go for the recycling process. It will add the value to the whole supply chain, but we have to go to that process circular economy. I believe that it is on kind of social awareness building, that how you can go to the circular economy, and it will add the value to supply chain performance as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your nice answer. If the participants, if you have any questions, please, you can also raise your hand. We will be allowing you to unmute yourself.
Sir, how to achieve scholarship about PhD, and my background in agriculture, soil science, and how to achieve scholarship in Europe country and China, Malaysia, and some other countries.
Again, this question belongs to Edupro, not for me. If you have
Thanks,
any question,
yeah, thank you, sir. I'm just complimenting his question, answering the question regarding the scholarship and other opportunities. For this particular webinar, we have the subject-specific webinar. We are arranging more webinar, especially in next month. Following the next month, we have an webinar with the university, Southern Solent University. So if you have any questions regarding the scholarship or the opportunities with the universities, you can have the opportunity to make the question on that webinar. Kindly ask only subject-specific questions for this now.
I think they asked the one question coming from the Fabrino. She asks that thank you so much for the presentation in relation to employee safety. May please elaborate more on that. How is it done and how can it be efficient? Okay, very good question. Thank you so much. You were asking the employee safety. Employee safety, if you ask, do you recall that I said the ESG, environmental, social, and then governance, and then employee safety is one of the key issue. Your whole organization depends on the employee. So employee, if they can understand they have a value in the organization, by the society, they have a demand in the market. So that's why that top management, they're taking care of the employee safety. Automatically production will be improved. Basically, it comes to the employee mindset that they have the huge what do you call it, the security issues, safety issue, risk management issues. The top manager, they're thinking automatically they'll add the value. So what I said that the employee safety would add the value to the sustainable supply chain management for the industry. Any other question, please? Regarding our topics, sustainable supply chain management.
Sir, we have received another question. I think
Please.
this should be the final one. We can speak about what are the best practices for effective communication in the supply chain.
It's a very good question. Effective communication in the supply chain. Do you recall that I mentioned the flow of information? I mentioned the flow of information from supply to customer. And now you can ask me, sir, how can manage this flow of information? We have to use a management integrated system, management integrated information system, so that all information be visible. Maybe you can track the information, and we can, what I said earlier, the term, that's transparent supply chain management. So you can see, you can apply what I said, the technology driven information will be the all integrated information management system, MIS system. So that you are in inventory, you can track the inventory information. You are in the transportation, you can track the transportation information. You are in the, suppose the manufacturing factory, you can see the factory information. So we have to need that kind of integrated information system. That is the best practices for the communication with the supply chain. I think we notice that 2 more questions here, and one is a raise the hand. If you allow, we can take the 1 or 2 questions, or would you like to finish? Organizer, Edupro?
Just one question. One
yeah,
question.
Please. Yeah, one question. So I should decide which will be the next one.
No, just to give you a question from me, if you're an organization and you wanted to future-proof your supply chain, in terms of the environmental impact and the social and the economic benefits, how do you balance the two in terms of reporting, monitoring, and taking action? So organizations will want to reduce the carbon footprint, but they know that if they take too big a step, it'll have adverse economic consequences for the financial viability of their business model. So how do they balance their need to be environmentally doing the right thing, but at the same time needing to be profitable?
Thank you. Very good question, Robert. I like to start in that way. Let us start thinking. At first, what is our first priority? Our first priority is that the society sustainability. So when you talk about the society, the human is one of the most important part. And when you think that the human, like the health issue, human lifestyle issue, that is the environment is the most important thing. So sometimes we are compromised this kind of financial issues due to the sustainability of the human being. If you look very carefully, do you know that nowadays you can see that South Asian country, not the South Asian countries, sometimes the summer is extending the summertime. Again, during the winter is too winter. And during the winter, sometimes they're facing the issues that they're going to survive. It's very difficult for the poor people. So when you come to this question is that the cost of living, the cost of human, that we are compromising. I know that what you said is absolutely right, that if you think the environmental friendly issues, the like carbon emissions issues and the carbon, you have to, a lot of financial issues are there. But again, what you said, that trade-off. We cannot come up with a profitable decision, but we can do the trade-off. That between these two, environmental issue and societal impact, and how it depends on the now. That's why the developed country, they're investing the money, they're investing the finance for this kind of things. At least those are developing countries, those are suffering these issues, they can survive. So maybe we have to start to think how we can work on that, how we can make the more better outcome from the trade-off between these two, environmental and social impact. So definitely environment is a very, very critical issue, but at the same time, finance also is one issue. So you have to make sure the trade-off between these two. Thank you, Robert. Very good question you raised.
Thank you. Sir, there are other questions, but there are many hands have been raised. So I'm taking just the last question from Samson.
Yeah.
Please unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me just address some set of questions. I'm Samson Oriemi from Kenya. I have just some four kind of question, but that's very serious subjective. One is, what do you think is the role of for promoting sustainable supply chain practices? Two, how can companies ensure fair labor practices and social responsibility throughout their supply chains? Second last, what are some effective strategies for reducing waste and carbon footprint in industry supply chain? Then lastly, how can industries collaborate with governments and NGOs to drive sustainable development in supply chains?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So you have a few,
are always-
you have few questions. I just give them a short answer, brief answer. But by the way, before replying your question, I could not get any female participant question. So, you know, we have to do the balance of the gender. It's a very important issue. So I was a little bit surprised that there's no female question raiser here. Okay, no problem. So if you think about this one, Samsung, that, you know, practices of the fair labor policy or whatever you say, it depends on the mindset of the organization, top management. So it's a part of the quality management issue. But you notice that you are asking the sustainable supply chain. That time the environmental issues are one. And footprint, carbon footprint, we already mentioned earlier. That is financially, so we know that. But it is the ultimate target that contribute to the society. So what I said, you said that the fair labor practice and carbon emission, whatever you said, you see that carbon emissions issues is the part of the environment, and the fair labor practices, it is a part of the social impact, and as well as the good governance. So make sure that we have the three pillars, and then how we can do the balancing among the three pillars. Because it is not possible the 100% that 100% execution, but do some balance and trade-off among the three. So that is a discussion will come for the top level management. Maybe we can do another discussion another one day about this kind of things. How can do the practice of this kind of things. So if there are any female participant, if any question, I like to reply. The last one for today.
Assalamualaikum. I am the participant, female participant, but due to some reasons, my contact was broken. And I could not join completely, so I could not think of any question. But I would surely want to participate.
Yeah. You are from which country?
Pakistan.
Pakistani Fatusan. Okay, no problem. You'll get the recording. You'll get the video. Okay. So if you have any further
hello
questions,
everyone. Hi.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Omolola. I'm with Connect Lab Africa in Nigeria. I'm actually organizing an event for women on how to navigate their way with AI. And I noticed supply chain can be complex, right? How can women entrepreneurs use AI to track their carbon footprint or monitor the sustainability of their vendor? Can you shed more light on that for me, please?
Ravila, I think thank you. It's a very good question, and I like to request that my email already address also there. You can send the email. I can give you the more details. But at a glance, I like to say, you know, female is that iconic body of the society. So when the female, they are familiar with the AI application and AI practice, it will add the value in the whole society. Supply chain ultimate target to contribute to the society. So even you are doing the household items, you are doing anything in the household, that is also supply chain. So what I said that if you think that how can you apply the AI in your existing supply chain, suppose you can use the Google Home, you can use the Siri, you can use the Alex, it will help you. You can use the cleaning the house, you can apply the AI. So everywhere you can apply the supply chain, this concept that AI driven supply chain. So ultimate target is that you can contribute to the society. So female participation means they can think what kind of the traditional works it was done by earlier the female, now it will be done by the AI, and we can do that. I can give the details about this one, and even if you can contact with me through email, maybe I can contribute to you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. How do I get your email?
You can get my email. You can just write my name in the Google. You can get me.
Oh, okay. All right.
You just write down my name in the Google. You can explore me from there.
All right. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Edupro, now you can finish for today.
Thanks everyone.
Hello,
thanks all the participants.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sanjana Nasrin, right? Sanjana Nasrin, do you want to ask the question?
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah.
I have a small question for you. Now, I want to know how can empowering youth contribute to a more sustainable supply chain future?
Empowering?
Youth contribute to a more sustainable
the same thing,
supply
I
chain.
think it's the same thing what I said, that Revilla, that youth, particularly, they are the very technology-driven people rather than previous group of people, serious citizens. So they can apply, they can think. You know that what I said, the Google Home, Siri, Alexa, and even you know that research. Even they can apply the research. They can apply in the assignment, semester project, AI. And nowadays we like to mention the similar index, but we have to make sure that ethics in the AI practicing. There are a lot of things we can do. Okay, so maybe we can work on that AI. Another session we can do on the AI only. Okay, thank you, Tanzina. Thank you so much,
Professor Habib. Thank you very much. Actually, as we have many more questions, what we will do, we will pass all the questions to you, and you write the reply to us, and we will share through our network and in our LinkedIn. So all the participants, I am requesting everyone to follow our LinkedIn pages, our website. Also, in the screen, you can see the QR code for team registration, particularly for the Edupro Green Talent Awards with the University of Leeds for 2026. Now, it is over to you, Rob, to conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for taking time out. It was an extremely interesting discussion. So Edupro is very different to an educational body that you normally engage with, in as much that they deliver sustainability of their heart and their offerings. And we have been, this is our second Green Talent Award program, and it outreaches all the way across the globe. But our vision is very simple, in as much that we want our learners to be educated by professionals in practice, and we backward integrate to ensure that those mentoring and coaching our learners have expertise. Our centres cross 27 countries across Europe, Asia and Africa, and we offer over 40 qualifications through different levels to ensure that we provide a relevance to your professional practice. And over 3,000 graduates have graduated through our centres. So it's well-established Edupro, but this Green Talent Award programme offers something a little bit different, and we're engaging in a lot of individuals from practice, from academia, and those studying that require some CPD to learn and benefit in sustainable credentials that link to HR, they link to supply chain, finance, Islamic finance, accounting. And our reach is worldwide. And one of the nice things about being on a call like this is that you do share best practice. Some of you are practicing sustainability in the real world, and learning from one another is the power of the network that Edupro creates. And so in Malaysia, to Kuwait, to the UK, to Sri Lanka, whether you're involved in agriculture, whether you're involved in engineering, whether you're involved in renewable energy, whether you're involved in waste minimization, recycling, or ESG policies, or corporate social responsibility, or audit, there is something to be shared. Now, we offer something for everybody. We go all the way through the different levels, from level 3 to level 7. And if you're looking at business communication, you're looking at HR, supply chain, logistics, accounting, finance, Islamic finance as a speciality, we offer something for everybody, from all the way through the diplomas, all the way through to undergraduate and postgraduate learning. Our last final was at Leeds University, and they very kindly hosted our Edupro final, and where we selected some of the best case study entries through their submissions, which were a report and a sort of interactive video presentation. So the recognition of the work that is done in sustainability was highlighted at this event. So we do have a final, and we do have a situation where we can acknowledge the work that has been done in sustainability. Some of these projects go live, and they're existing, and make a real difference. Edupro's Global Talent Award for 2026 has just started. So the run has just started, and we are empowering you to make a difference, because ambassadors are supporting this through being mentors to the process. And we realize that it starts in terms of future-proofing what we do. It starts with the young, and it starts with those that have a passion for sustainability. But it's very much about empowering those that are on their journey now. And hopefully the supply chain is a big part of what we do. So if you can link it in a meaningful way, as we've seen in that presentation, to what the challenges are, what the strategies are, and what the future holds to make our supply chain more sustainable in economic, social, and environmental terms, then it'll benefit all of us. Thank you, 𝗥cie𝗯𝗲𝗿𝘁 and the team at Edupro for putting together these webinars, which are done every month and provide us some CPD through knowledge, expertise, and understanding. And please ensure that you, if you want to put a team forward for the Green Talent Award Programme, contact Edupro. The case studies were going to come out in March 1st. So it's not long left, but we are accepting teams. And there are teams from all the way around the world. It's a great way of sharing your accomplishments on LinkedIn and staying connected professionally with your ability to demonstrate an impact that you can deliver in sustainability. So we'll see you at the next webinar. Thanks very much for attending, and thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thanks all. Have a good day. Bye for today.
Thank you everyone for you joining. Thank you everyone. Before leaving, please share your email address and full name for the e-certificate.
www.eduprouk.com